I think that Chris Cody, our most beloved oaf, it
just ended at beloved.
Is thinking about, is considering going where a football take, I don't think, has yet gone. I don't know what's happened here recently. Maybe it's the last year, or Tom Brady making Bill Belichick look somehow less smart than we thought. But you're willing to get out here with this take, Chris, or are you still a little scared of it?
I'll say it, Dan. The game has passed him by. And this actually, and Bill Belichick, and this has nothing to do actually with Tom Brady. Well, he mentioned Tom Brady. That's why I assumed people knew where we were headed with that. It's not about Tom Brady. It's about Brandon Staley, my coach with the Chargers. I mean, Bill Belichick just refuses to like he went, like I heard Mina say, like, I'm not going to say like I did this research. There were 2 times last Sunday where they punted at midfield with like 4th and 2, where everybody else is going for that now. And Belichick just is living in the Stone Age.
Chris, don't ever devalue yourself like that again. You looked up Mina's tweet. Guess what that's called?
Research?
Research.
Yes. That's right. But I'm telling you, it really, like, I know I'm doing this like, you know, like as a bit, but the game, like, it's changed overnight. It's just people go for it now. 4th and 4, midfield, easy. Go for it.
It wasn't overnight.
Yeah.
We've been yelling at these people for years.
But now they're actually listening. You've been yelling, but now all of a sudden, it feels like this season, every coach has figured out, I just got to go for it all the time. Except Belichick. So it might have passed him by.
Do you guys not think it's funny, though? Is it not funny to you that as little as the mainstream media can know about a million different things, and Lord knows we get a lot of shows, not Mina's show, but a lot of shows get on television just doing bullshit analysis on everything, and it's not actually in the weeds. Do you realize that what he's talking about here, getting in there and really understanding the game, like the way that we're analyzing this stuff is totally different now. And we were yelling for years about the math. I mean, on these leaders, these guys who are CEOs, and we're trusting to be smarter than everyone else. And they don't understand a basic market inefficiency where the media is actually getting it right and screaming into microphones, you guys demanding accountability from others. Will you quit being cowards when the math supports you? So, of course, Josh Allen, this is totally swung. Of course, Josh Allen, earlier this week, they're going for it on 4th and short. And you know that they should be going for it, even though they're down a field goal, even though you've been watching this. And before we're saying, ooh, tough decision. Tough decision here. What do you do? And it's not a tough decision. The math supports, even if you lose, that you made the right decision. They've learned it now, but some announcers still haven't learned it. I was watching a Browns game 2 weeks ago, and was it against the Chiefs or somebody else? They were telling Baker Mayfield to not go for it inside the 5 on 4th and 2 to kick a field goal to tie a game, when Stefanski's going to go for it on 4th and 2 from the inside the 5 every time.
Yeah, according to the math, the Browns go for it when they actually should, according to the new NFL math, more than anybody else in the league. They're also terrible at 4th downs.
I've seen Baker Mayfield sacked on 4th and 1 about 17 times this season.
You could have said you've seen him 4 times, and that's a lot. And that's the actual number. He's been sacked on 4th down 4 times.
4th and 1, sacked like 20 yards behind the line of scrimmage, too. Not little sacks where he's
sacked
running
into good field position for the other team.
Lax.
If they do something and it doesn't work, then you can't say the right decision was made.
Well,
that's not, no.
You're taking results over process. Yeah. I'm always going to go process there.
That's fine, but you can be wrong. I mean, probability can tell you 60% of the time it'll work, but if it's in the 40%, it didn't work, so it wasn't the right decision.
I don't think you're ever wrong when you have a result in hand. You can just argue that the math and the process was right, but then it ultimately comes down to execution. And if another team's better than you, then you probably deserve
the question becomes, on any life decision that you might be soaked in fear about, Billy, if I tell you the probabilities on your process suggest 58% success rate, wouldn't you, as a cautious sort, usually choose the thing that's more mathematically probable, whatever it is, life decision?
Yeah, but if it's wrong, it's still wrong. Just because 58% of the time it works, 42% of the time it doesn't.
I think
you don't have to be married to the numbers.
I like those odds. I don't. Like, the concept of punting when you're anywhere near midfield always baffles me. I know it's a game of real estate acquisition, but no, we can't risk a turnover here. What are we going to do? Just willingly give them the ball instead. That's not a turnover.
Here's the problem. So first of all, Dan, you said, oh, I can't believe they're doing this. the number of media voices who were yelling about the math was really small up until very recently, right? This wasn't a universal thing. And when you talk about coaches, one of the things that, working in the industry has taught me more than anything is they are an endangered species at all times. They always behave like this next thing is going to get me fired. That's why a lot of the great coaches are the people who've been with an organization for 100 years, because they know, I don't have to worry about that stuff. I can just go out there and coach. Eric Spoelstra can just go out there and coach. Greg Popovich can go out there and coach. Someone like Jamal Mosley, who's the new head coach for the Orlando Magic, he can't just go out there and coach. He's got to make decisions that are not just based on what's the best thing for this team right now, but what's the fallout if this thing goes wrong? If, like Billy said, if the 42% happens, what's the fallout? And so for a lot of those football coaches, yeah, they were punting, not because they knew this was the right play, but because they knew no one's going to criticize you for being cowardly in this moment.
It's just funny in this costume, this drape of courage and leadership that we have made the Belichicks of the world, that deep inside, there is this cowardice to move just because it represents change. And no matter how many people were screaming, the self-interests are such that they still answer to the fear instead of the math. That's fascinating given what we think of these men as.
I've seen it firsthand with Alvin Gentry. When Steve Kerr was the general manager, Alvin coached fast and loose, and we were great. And then when we had a management shift, Alvin coached scared. And you could even sense it in the way he communicated, guys. He wasn't doing it the same way. And that was, to me, that was illuminating the idea.
Man, that's crazy that a corporation could steal a coach's confidence.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, fear of failure does that. But look, there's this chart in the NFL that any situation, it tells you when you should go for fourth. I actually don't fully believe in that. I think that there is a true argument for gut feeling. Every game takes on its own shape. It really does. Oh, they've been stuffing me on short downs, on short yardage all the time. What am I going to run a quarterback sneak here? I don't necessarily feel. My defense has been really on this. Our coverage has been good. I'm going to trust my defense. When Bill Belichick famously went for it that Sunday night against Peyton Manning, it wasn't so much I have Tom Brady. That's not what the difference is here. A lot of people are saying that because it's Mac Jones versus Tom Brady, and that's why he's punting. To me, the bigger offense is when he had Tom Brady and he went for it, it was out of fear of Peyton Manning. And Dak Prescott, he may not be Peyton Manning, but he was really good. Like, he just showed them how good he could be. And he just willingly gave the ball over back to Dak Prescott. And I think Bill Belichick needs to be kind of aware that Dak Prescott's not somebody that you give the ball back to in this scenario. You have to go for it on fourth down, even if you don't have Tom Brady anymore.
But it's not just giving it back. It's giving them the ball 60 yards further from where they are. Where if you don't get it, you do just give it back to them right there.
I actually, in those situations, I don't mind it. We see, outside of the Cleveland Browns, we see people get back to midfield with relative ease. And teams have a better chance of defending when they're closer to their end zone. It all depends on the actual score and scenario, but you got to stop them. You might as well stop them your first opportunity at midfield because that's still very difficult. You can't even kick when you're at midfield.
I'm really honestly more interested in the view from above on this stuff with what Amin is talking about, because when he's talking about how a corporation can steal a coach's confidence and how much of a straining grind it has been to get these cavemen to just pay attention to some of the math instead of John Gruden, who just got run out of the sport. When they said analytics to him, show me how many games that computer has coached, that we're now in a place where clearly it is not an act of bravery what Brandon Staley is doing, going for it inside his own 20-yard line. It's just him saying, look, this is how I'm going to play. I'm going to play fearlessly. These are just the numbers. These are the probabilities. I'm going to go for it on 4th and 7, 4th and 8. And
you don't think so, though? You don't think it's brave? Because I guarantee you in some of those scenarios where he's gone for it, even the math says don't go for this. I just know what's readily available in terms of the chart. But what that chart doesn't say is you're playing Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
That chart doesn't say the Browns have 500 yards of total offense with 0 turnovers.
It's not unlike people who say, there are some people who say if a guy takes a mid-range shot, that's a bad shot. Well, it's not a bad shot if it's Steph Curry. Right. right? He's coming because the defense collapsed on him at the 3-point line. He takes a dribble and stops short and goes up for a 15-footer. So a lot of these kind of rule of thumb things when people are yelling, even as now we're at a place where we have more math at our disposal and people are championing the math element. The big problem is they still want to paint with a broad brush. And like Mike said, not every situation calls for it. So there are some times I think where, yeah, you didn't do what the quote-unquote math calls for, but that's because there's situational things happening here that would say, yeah, that wouldn't be the smart play.
I have JOK out with a high ankle sprain. His absence means my coverages can't be as intricate. So maybe I have to go for it here because I can't stop their quarterback with my defense. My defense is presently constituted.
Like on Monday night, did Sean McDermott get criticized after that? That
No.
was a risky move he did.
It wasn't
You could
risky.
you could just kick the field goal and go to overtime.
I'll tell you why it wasn't risky, even though it failed and it's process.
They lost, so it was the wrong decision.
Process over result. They did lose, and they could have lost if they tied it in overtime. And again, you're just playing probabilities. But the math was that Josh Allen in this situation had made it every time but one, and the one time he did not make it is when he fumbled because he's so big. He just fumbled the snap, and it wasn't about anything but a fluke. So they are good at getting this inch. And if I ask you in this situation, even though it failed, Billy, I just say to you, who would you rather be here? The team with the lead, 34-31, and 12 seconds left in the game, or the team that has the ball? Which would you prefer? Because now, finally, after much straining, football has gotten to the place where I think the majority of coaches are going to say, you know what? For an inch, if my offense can't get an inch in a play, I'll take the loss. I'll lose the game. It's fine.
But you didn't have to lose the game. You could have tied the game.
You could have played scared, kick a field goal, and missed it.
You could have also gone overtime. Titans win the coin toss, and Derrick Henry runs for 60 yards.
But you have
and
like the best defense in the league. You could trust your defense, and you know.
They weren't the best defense in the league then, which is I think also playing into what Sean McDermott. They were really struggling to stop Tennessee towards that second half. I think with the best short yardage quarterback in the league since Cam Newton, you'd do that every time.
But the
and it's a
argument
credit
you
to
guys are
Tennessee.
making is the right decision was made.
Yeah.
Even when
The right
it
process,
didn't work out.
the
No,
right-
but the right decision was not made.
No,
They
No,
lost.
no. I don't blame the decision. You see, you're correlating the result with the decision. The decision
It
was
didn't
right.
work out.
No, the execution was wrong. They didn't execute.
Little Stugats over here. I mean, like,
the argument is, and this is I've heard
Who
Nick
won?
Saban
Who won?
say the
Who
same
won?
thing.
Who
Yes.
won?
That's,
Who won?
But in that spot, let me
Who
make
won?
you the coach. Do you go for it?
Kick the field goal.
You kick the field goal?
Yeah.
Is that because
Coward.
you have the result in hand? Or you just genuinely like, I like my chances in overtime?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like my chance. You don't
No,
like Josh Allen?
I like Josh Allen, but I like Josh Allen to get me a half a yard more than I like
You didn't.
my fate being decided in part by a coin toss and then possibly having to match Derrick Henry and then Josh Allen. I feel like in this spot, let me get the half yard.
If I just said in a vacuum, you enter a football game and it comes down to getting 3 yards, would like that's a scenario that you'd play for, right? I've got to get 3 yards to
Yeah.
win the game.
Yes.
all of us are choosing
Most NFL
offense. All of us are choosing offense.
Most
We want the
NFL
team with the offense.
Most NFL offenses worth a damn average over 3 yards per play.
But guys, all the time people kick field goals or kick extra points when they've just tied the game. They don't go for 2. Why don't they do that?
Well, more and more they're changing that. More and more you will see throughout. This is the next evolution of that. Although the probabilities there are smaller on that one. Like
In this scenario, we just need 3 yards. That's less. You need 2 yards for a
but
2-point
the
conversion.
risk reward on probabilities is slightly smaller for whatever the reason is.
Yeah, if I were a head coach, I'd probably go for it for 2 on my first attempt. And then on my second attempt, if I fail, then I'm chasing that and I'll play a conventional math game. But I like it when the Steelers had a lot of success opening the game, going for 2, and then they they map out all the exact scenarios after that fact.
that's how I did NFL
Well, they
Blitz.
stopped doing that and their offense wasn't as great.
Always went for 2 on NFL Blitz. Never, ever, ever went for the field goal.
I feel like the fact that the Steelers kind of tried to do that, they were like, you know what, the new game, we can go for it every time, and then they quickly were like, oh shit, it's not working out as like we hoped it would.
It works when you got Le'Veon Bell, a younger Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, and Keith Miller. They have a different offense.
Oh, you mean it works when you're good? Oh.
What you guys are arguing, though, is for these people to go in and tell their bosses, yeah, we lost, but the process worked. And it's like, okay, but you lost.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, Billy. I go back to, it's not even necessarily whether the math says you should do it or not. It's What's the fallout if it doesn't work? Will anyone begrudge me if I kick the field goal, we go to overtime and we lose? No. Will anyone begrudge me if I go for it and don't get it and we lose? Yes. And so as long as that, and you want to call it the court of public opinion, or if it's just the guy in the owner's box, either way, that's what they're coaching against. They're not coaching against success or failure. They're coaching against what's the fallout if I fail.
Stugotz has always said that, but they're going to criticize me if I make the other decision, if I don't do the copycat decision. But that's where leadership is real, and that's why these guys specifically.
But the Bills are charmed. They're 4-1 at the moment, so they can afford to have a loss because they're going to be good. They know that they're good.
Another reason to play with confidence and without fear.
Yeah, another data point.
But
for you
every
to-
team can't do that.
Right.
Well, I mean, desperate teams can. Like, we definitely need a win. I think that there's so many more variables than just what a chart says. And by the way, the chart says you go for it there too. I think everything about that game pointed to making that decision. I understand you have the result in hand, but you're saying the result it was wrong because the result. I'm saying the execution was wrong. The process, the decision was right. You're just flatly saying the decision was wrong because they failed. I'm saying no, they failed because they didn't execute, not because they made the wrong decision.
I don't know how to argue that.
It was a very wordy way of saying this to you, that the decision they made was the most probable one. The result was wrong, but the process in choosing that probability is what you need to do.
But it's not a process. You just look at a chart. It says 52% yes, 48% no. Let me just always do what 52
But
is.
if winning is in the margins, if all these games are being decided by bounces, you'd like to have the coach with the most probable math, wouldn't you? Just in general, if you had no, not so much.
I want to
Give me
coach. I want a coach that puts my team in the most probable positions to win a football game, and I think McDermott did that. And it's easy to do that, but there are different variables. Like, I have Josh Allen; he's gigantic. Our math says he's 100% at this scenario. It's not 52%. He's 100%. So you do it until you get stopped.
I talk about this all the time when it comes to teams. They say, oh, this is a top 5 defensive team. And I say, why? I say, well, look at the points allowed per 100 possessions across the season. I say, yeah, but when you get in the playoffs, that doesn't really matter because a lot of that is built on we beat the Timberwolves and held them to 80 points. Okay, like that's nice that you could hold bad teams. Does that matter in terms of the higher caliber of teams you play in the playoffs? And then specifically when you're playing against a specific team, does it matter against them as they are game planning everything about you and what you do and what your strengths and weaknesses are? A lot of this stuff, man, the math helps, but it has to be contextual on some level because if it's not, if you think it's just like Mike said, a chart, it says go for it, then go
No,
for
there are
it.
human beings involved,
Yeah.
and so you program them through management and a bunch of other computations after just
Weather.
looking at a chart.
Beyond the
Weather,
human.
injuries. There's so many variables.
Exactly. Beyond the human beings, like the humans can do anything. They're crazy. It's like Mike said, there's just things that chart doesn't talk about or isn't detailed or granular enough for.
Billy, I don't even mean to be an indictment of like how careful you are with decision making, how prudent you are in decision making. And Amin is talking about needing coaches who can be prudent, but also a little bit fearless. If I just tell you this is your football team and you're up 3 points and the scenario is you're on defense, what did you want your football team to have the Bills do?
If I'm on defense,
You're on defense. Do you want them?
I want them to go for it and lose.
So you want them to go for it.
But I'm on offense. I'm talking to you from someone on offense.
No, I'm asking you to be the Titans defense. Do you want to be in the position where the Bills are making the decision and you want them to choose to go for it?
Yeah, because the field goal from that distance is going to go in more than likely.
Vrabel did play that. He let the clock run. He was kind of being criticized in it. Like, why isn't he stopping the clock in case they score? That was kind of him saying, I trust my defense here. I mean, it might not have, it maybe is not the play that is like the most statistically that's going to happen most times, but it worked out for him.
It is some man style stuff, right? Half an inch for the game. Here it is.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to be the person? Do you want to be the person getting the half inch, or do you want to be the person trying to prevent the half inch?
I'll be honest with you. Whenever my team is on defense in that scenario, I'm always terrified. I'm always like, oh my God, it's just an inch.
I would think
A
it's
guy's
a
gonna-
victory if someone comes out to kick the field goal. And I would say,
Yeah.
thank you
Yeah.
for taking this game to overtime. I thought I was just going to lose it.
I'm a Browns fan, and the most recent Browns examples of teams going for it, whether it be the Chiefs in the playoffs or week 1 or that Chargers game a couple of weeks ago, I'm always like, shit, we're facing a smart one. And they're good on top of that. Shit, I don't think I can get this
Well,
stuff.
I mean, some of this is if you're actually good at this, and the most clever coaches and the bravest coaches won't even look at this as bravery. Wait a minute. I got Kyler Murray, and you're going to give me 4 downs to get 10 yards instead of 3? I'll play with that math a little bit. Like, you're going to give me 4 chances to get 10 yards when this is my quarterback, and you stopped him on 3rd and 9, and it don't mean shit that you got me to 3rd and 9 because you're still scared that I'm going to throw it 25 yards down the field or run 30 yards down the field or throw it 70 yards down the field. Like that to me is what we're watching.